Good evening, everyone. Good evening. It is Alliance on the Move this evening, greeting you. It is Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, rather, and we are here with you, myself, David Patterson, and Vincent Adams, here to bring you all the information that you can handle for this evening to take you throughout this long weekend. Guys, I want to give Mr. Patterson and Mr. Adams the opportunity to say a few words before we get into the broadcast. I see the folks are already here, ready to get the information. So, Mr. Patterson, I would like you to give a little brief before we start the program.
Well, thank you very much, Dorita. Hi, Vince. It's always been my pleasure to come back on to this program. I understand it's one of the most watched programs on the weekend in Berbice. So obviously, what we're going to impart today, I hope it will live up to our really high standards because obviously the level of misinformation you get around now, particularly this week. I mean, this week was like sort of watershed week. I saw the entire cabinet was in Region 5 and Region 6. I heard a minister being related that he's being too disruptive and those things like that. I know that, you know that. So
That's
we're
week
here to
before.
yes, to sit down, you know what I mean? So we're here to stand up and let the people know what the facts are about certain important issues facing our country today. So it's my pleasure to be here.
Mr. Adams.
Hey, thanks, David and Juretta, and it's really a pleasure for me to be here as usual to speak the truth to the people, to get rid of all the falsities and the fake news that are being peddled out there. And of course, this year is we're heading into tomorrow is a major day in our history. It's an annual celebration, but this year is of particular importance this year with the onset of oil and gas, which is everybody's looking for oil and gas to set the tone. And based on what we're seeing here, it's not starting out too well for us. So we need to inform. That's one of the things we're going to be informing the people as to some of the things that are happening in that industry, and the government ought to perform its duties of fixing them. So glad to be here, and it's always a pleasure to be here to inform and have a conversation with the people.
Well, that's correct. And the first thing, let me tell, the first thing we want to get into, like Mr. Patterson rightly said, we have to continuously tackle misinformation that is being spread throughout the country, and it is good. And I want to just start off by saying that throughout the period of 2015 to 2020, the Guyanese developed the confidence to speak out against things that are bothering them. And I believe today we see that coming full circle, and I see that even the PP administration, as it moves around the country in all of these meetings that they're having, they are being confronted with the boldness that people develop during those 5 years of having the freedom to actually say how they feel and to express themselves, and actually having the information in the palm of their hands, literally, through the utilization of technology. So it is a bit more easier for us to tackle misinformation today because of all the work that was done with actually enhancing the use of technology on all of that throughout the 5 years of 2015 to 2020. And those are some of the things that we will be talking about. But I want to start us off on the fact that there was an outreach there in Berbice, and a lot was said. And among all that was said, one of the things that was said at one of the outreaches, that NAS is bankrupt. And that was said by none other than Bharat Jagio in his capacity as the vice president, actually said that NIS is bankrupt. And that was said in response to a resident going there to the meeting and actually asking about what is going on, why, when, well, basically asking if he's going to be seeing an increase in NIS. So I know that persons in Barbies, if you haven't had the opportunity to actually view it, I want to just show a little clip of that video and then take us into the discussion of it. So the guys are going to pull that up. Guys, just view this video and then we're going to be right back into the discussion about what was said and actually pointing out the misinformation that was highlighted there by Bart Jagdeo.
The National Insurance Scheme is bankrupt, according to Vice President Bara Jagdeo. Jagdeo made the disclosure at Bath Settlement, West Coast, Berbice on Wednesday in response to a resident inquiring as to why there has been no increases in NIS pension. The Vice President led a team of government ministers and other functionaries on a cabinet outreach in Region 5. According to the Vice President, the blame for there being no increases in NIS should be laid at the feet of the former APNU AFC coalition government.
Takes 1 year.
I don't understand what you mean declaration.
Well, the mean said, then I get one increase in.
But comrade, you know the NIS bankrupt. You know the NIS bankrupt basically. That when APNU reduced the 7,000 sugar workers, it's 7,000 people less were contributing to the NIS. When 35,000 people lost their jobs, the base fall immediately. We're struggling now to make sure and we got to put in money ultimately into the NIS to keep it floating so people who retire can get their benefits for the next 100 years. That is what the consequences were. So
the gentleman, however, seemed not to be too concerned with the explanation offered, as he was just interested in getting his increase.
Not got it. Not got it.
Yeah, so the actuarial study.
That simply ask something here, that if you are sitting in bankrupt, there is money where you can go and get to that. Hold on there. We are simply ask that if
you tell me where the money you get.
First one, there is a rule that if NIS is bankrupt, you can go to the consolidated fund.
Oh, really? Yes. So the boy. No. He's right. Actually, the consolidated fund. He's absolutely right that you can go to the consolidated fund, but you think money just fall from the sky into the consolidated fund?
Jagdeo said the focus at this time is not on increasing benefits.
Not on increasing benefits, but on keeping the current people getting their benefits, receiving them. That's the focus. So that's your answer. Right now, that is not the focus on increasing, but to keep current people. So every month making sure that those who are getting a check from NIS, that they can continue to get a check.
So there is no increase?
No, at this point in time, no. At this point in time, no.
The National Insurance Scheme went into a downward spiral when the previous People's Progressive Party government, under then-President Bara Jagdeo, invested almost $6 billion in the now-defunct insurance company Clico and nearly $1 billion in the Berbice River Bridge.
Well, there you have it. I could not have said it any better. I know that one of the things I want to have to say that I am completely proud of the persons living in Berbice and the fact that they have been stepping forward. One by one, they are mustering the strength and the courage to step forward. And I often say that I am not concerned with who someone voted for at the 2020 election. It is my duty, it is our duty to represent you right now. So whatever is bothering you right now, those are the issues that we are responsible for standing up and supporting each and every citizen of this country on. And I commend and support every last resident that gets up and says, this is the issue that we're having, and that those persons are also demanding answers at this point. But I want to state, and I want to start a discussion off by the fact that Bart Jagdeo sought to blame the coalition administration for it, as he called it, NIS being bankrupt. Mr. Patterson, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, as I say, our slip of the tongue is no fault to the mind. Bara Jagdeo just spoke, but obviously that resident was quite opaque. Everyone knows what went on, and I'll bring you some facts, but just give me a 30 seconds to explain to our viewers how NIS works. Everybody that is employed, self-employed, or employed by an employer has to pay NIS. It's a law. And what happens is that you start paying NIS as soon as you start to work, and you pay until you reach the age of 60. And the idea is that the younger and the newer persons, you know what I mean, like myself, yourself, Vince, and those things, that we pay. And but when, like, say, Vince gets 60, he collect his benefit. So the younger persons and the newer persons who haven't achieved the age of 60, they are the ones, and of course you would have paid, they're the ones that would keep the fund rolling. Now, and it was working absolutely perfectly until 2006 to 2005, with because they had a lot of money. Bara Jagdeo and the PPP decided that, oh, there's too much money in this fund, and they said, and they made a big thing that the people did, that you have money in a fund, you must invest it. First investment they made, they took 5.8, $5.5 billion out and invested in a scheme which turned out to be a Ponzi scheme,
Clico.
Clico. And Clico, of course, Clico was doing Ponzi scheme. You know the Ponzi scheme. What the Ponzi scheme is that you pay in your money, and they promise you these extremely large returns, and obviously, and obviously they can't do that. So Clico turned out to be a Ponzi scheme, and they went into receivership. They went bankrupt. Clico went bankrupt, owing the government at the time. I have the report right here with me, because that's the thing. So at the time, they owed the people of Guyana $5.4 billion. Now, what happened, Jarita, is that they owed all this money. They went bankrupt, and they went bankrupt not only in Guyana. Clico was a CARICOM wide company, was based in Trinidad. So, and they took the money and they bought land in America, in Florida, and all those things like that. So when they went bankrupt, there's no way for us to get back the money, because that person is, you know. So they went bankrupt in 2009. They went into receivership in by the end of 2011. They were dissolved. The government did nothing. The PPP government did nothing from 2011 to 2015. The only repayment they got, that they took a building from Clico, which is not, and they sold it to GRA for 600 million. That's where the GRA building is. So at the end of 2015, when we came in, on Clico's bad deal alone, the government owed Clico $4.5 billion.
The
They knew
PMP
this since
government.
the PP government, right? And they knew this since 2009,
Yeah.
2015, 6 years after. They did absolutely nothing. When we came in, we said that, oh, listen to me, here we have to do the pay. And we, from 1st of January 2016, we started paying Clico, is, I think, is about like $500,000 a year for 20 years. That is the thing. Is we take out to the same consolidated fund as the gentleman is saying. And that is what has kept Clico afloat. But worse yet, and he made mention of that, but Guy Suko. What Guy Suko was doing, and all the sugar workers know, is that they were deducting the NIS and the GRA
I'm not
money
paying
out
it.
of the workers.
Workers.
So it's not the workers' fault, but they were never paying it into NIS. So when we came in, when we decided, listen to me, let us look at this. They owe Guy Suko alone owed Clico over $6 billion in NIS funds. On top of that, so in other words, that while you in your pay slip was saying it out that you paid your major NIS
Yes.
contributions, it's only a paper transaction. They printed out saying it out that you paid, but they never paid in the money. So when the sugar workers went to collect their benefits and those things like that, there was a big issue in 2016, 2017 about sugar workers saying that the guy super steal their money. It wasn't guy NIS stole their money. It wasn't NIS, but the PPP guy Suko, Raj Singh and all those guys and those things like that, all those fancy magicians to keep it up. So what we did is as a coalition government, we made an agreement with NIS, which is honor the monies that you owe to the sugar workers. Honor it, even though the guys who could never paid you the money. You have to honor your obligation. If somebody got sick, maternity leave, they have the NIS, you pay them. And we as a government would pay you back. And that's what we started doing. So therefore, the whole idea that Jagdio is saying that we brought NIS to the ground, absolutely baloney. We actually ensured that the sugar workers continue to receive their benefits. We ensure that NIS paid them everything, even though Gaituko never ever paid over the money. From the consolidated money, the 1st of January every month, we put $500 million into NIS. This is to cover the money that was filtered away, squandered away, and lost away. Worse yet, the Barbies Bridge. I went on the website of NIS just after I heard that yesterday, and I pulled up the last annual report that is online. And the auditors, and here's what the auditors are saying. So Jagio has to explain to the people of Barbies where this great profit NIS is. The auditors in 2019, that's the last one, they're saying that it's only a book transaction, that the Barbies Bridge has more liabilities than, because they made a projection they're going to pay money. So what really happens is that they say they're going to pay the bridge, they're going to pay NIS, but they don't actually pay any money. They just defer it, accumulate it. So therefore, on paper, they said that we have $2 billion for guys, but they never actually physically paid over any money. So that's what it so that's what they've been doing all the while. And if the Burbage Bridge is so profitable, if the Burbage Bridge is so profitable to pay NIS 3.5 billion dollars, why is it that they're still trying to raise their tolls? Why
Correct.
is why is a business that is making a profit still getting up and tell the people that they're making a profit and want to raise the tolls 800%? We got to take sense out of nonsense. You know what I mean? He just says these things, throws it onto the coalition, but our people are not silly.
Yeah.
How can a business that's making a profit still, and there's a court order which I myself and the coalition government put on the bridge in November 2018. It's still
Yeah.
in
So those
place
were not raised. Yeah.
to force them not to raise the rate. If and the PPA is coming to government 2 years, they haven't removed that court order, because they know the second they will remove that court order, this same business that Jagdeo is claiming that is paying all these billions of dollars will raise their tolls because they're saying that how they're making a law. So he's just throwing out, as someone said, he throws out mud to see what's going to stick. Whenever he's been caught um, with his pants down, literally, he gets up, holds a press conference, throws out some mud, throws out some hairy fairy facts. But the people know, anybody that goes to NIS knows the problems that they have, and absolutely nothing to do with the coalition government. We never took a red penny out of NIS. What we did is put in $500 million for 5 years. I don't know if they continue doing it now, but we put in $500 million per year for 5 years. We never took a cent out. Barajagio took $6 billion out to put to Clico, $2.5 billion to do the bridge. Then he bought another, when the bridge was on the front, he bought another $810 million out of it. So somebody who's taken out almost $10 billion out of the coffers of NIS and haven't repaid it, to come to say that is that the coalition is the one that makes it feel that we haven't touched NIS. We all we did is keep it afloat. So, Charita, I'm telling you what I mean, but I know the Barbicians are wise enough, and they can Google these things.
But we
Uh,
saw it. We saw how smart everybody is right now. And I want to say again the advent of technology and the fact that from 2015 to 2020, persons were so free to express themselves. No one was ever muzzled. There was no repercussions if you speak out. Persons are used to that. So now we see that manifesting itself today. I want to just highlight, since we are dealing with misinformation, I want to highlight the fact that at no point in time that number that Barzal just calling, or the people like to call 7,000 show workers, at no point in time that number was ever validated. And every official report that came out, even from Gaisuko, stated the number to be 5,160 persons, and I can even further break it down and say for the actual sugar workers there it was 4,751, and the others were between senior and junior staff at the
Administrative
administrative
staff.
level, right? So when you're talking about misinformation, these are some of the things you can just point at point blank, because these are the statistical data that's coming out from Gaisuko as to the persons that was dismissed, and those are persons from Wales, the East Emirate, all unscaled, all compounded, no one left out. So when they speak about this 7,000 persons, you're like, what are they talking about? And as you rightly say, that for the folks who's listening, at some point in time, NIS was actually threatening court action against Gaisupo to actually have them pay the money that was outstanding to them because of all of those issues. Mr. Adams, what do you have to say on this?
Well, I don't know why it surprises anybody, because I don't think that Mr. Jagdeo could fool anybody. His modus operandi, and the guy, he just can't help himself, is to blame everything on the coalition. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm surprised he hadn't started blaming the coalition for the Skeldon fiasco. I'm surprised he hadn't started blaming the coalition yet for the one laptop for home. Where, I saw an article here written by the former um, audit
Auditor General.
general, who called out those failed projects.
Yeah.
That, I haven't seen him. He's probably, that's got to be the next thing. Trust me. As soon as somebody's gonna ask him the question about it, and like David said, as soon as he gets caught with his pants down, he does shoot from the hip, irresponsibly. Yeah, but he does that. It's the same thing at the EPA when he got caught with flaring. He blamed it on the coalition somehow, that I was allowing them. There was something in the EIA. I cannot believe if there's nothing more barefaced than that. To point the media and the public to the EIA, which says, according to him, that we allowed them 14 billion cubic feet of flare, and it wasn't there. It was a blatant lie. So that's what he does. That's not the kind of leadership that we expect from somebody that leads you in anything. Even your little clubs. You expect somebody who will aspire, or who's in those type of position, much less the leader of a country, is to, whatever it is, the buck stops at you. Don't blame everything on everybody. But here's the other part of what he does. Everything that the coalition did, he takes credit for it. Or everything that the coalition made progress on, and he takes credit for it, and he says, well, nothing was done before. I've got tons of examples from the EPA, where stuff rolls off of his tongue, saying that he invented it, whereas that's not. I mean, it
Shameless.
Absolutely. So that's how he operates, and this here is just blatant. I noticed, he tried to walk this back by coming out with stuff, all kinds. I don't know where he got the numbers from, but of course I'm not an expert. But I noticed he didn't touch any. He never said anything responding to the Clico thing, David. I wonder.
No, well,
he didn't touch the Clico
right.
part.
So he likes to throw a lot of dirt. He likes to try to confuse persons. He wants to think that you Barbicians are really stupid, and the rest of us as well, Guyanese. But Vince, I want to use the figure that Jarita gave us, say 5,100 sugar workers and administrators, right? If, for example, just an example, if they pay 15,000 per month to NIS, if their contribution plus the company employees and employer contribution, 5,100 employees, $15,000 per month for the 2009, 2011 to 2020. That, if you multiply that amount of money, it's actually $10 billion. $10 billion that you have not put into Gaisuko, right? That is the period of time in which Gaisuko has been running, been deducting these money, and they've taken that $10 billion and used it somewhere else. But that's $10 billion that has not gone into the NIS to help pay for their benefits and those things like that. So for him to come and say that, and on top of the $10 billion, the PPP took out another $9 to $10 billion. So therefore, NIS the reason they're bankrupt is that just them alone, that's about $20 billion between money that they deducted from their workers, haven't remitted to NIS, and money that the PPP took out of NIS monies that the rest of us were paying and gave it to their friends and family. $20 billion. And then you can have the temerity to say that it was the APNUF who never, ever, folks you can copy, took a cent out of the NIS. When we recognized how bad it was, we started injecting monies into it. So, you know what I mean? But he likes this.
But the other thing, David, the other thing is, here is this poor, the poor citizens of this country. The only thing that they rely upon, okay, is this NIS, okay? Whereas those with political connections and the rich of Guyana, if you fly into Guyana as a foreigner, you would swear that Guyana is probably the richest country on the planet because of the nice houses and everything that the affluent and the rich have. So that's what you see for the most part. Here is this guy who was asking him this question, and I'm sure most of the people of Guyana are in their position who depends on the NIS. And here is the vice president, or de facto president of Guyana, telling this guy, guess what? We cannot give you a few pennies for you to live. However, we've got all of these billions of dollars of projects that we're using the oil money to expend on this oil money to make sure that those who are connected, they're making all. I mean, I cannot believe the number of contracts and the number of new projects with all of these
tens of billions of dollars
and everything else that are being developed. So those are the people who are being enriched. But the poor person cannot get just a little, just to live, just to get something to eat. You're telling them, here, you know what? I can't do that. But then you go tomorrow, I bet you maybe before the night is passed, he's probably going to go and brag about all of these billion-dollar projects and who they're bringing in to do it. We've got over 9.4 billion that we've been billed by Exxon, and we are not even paying attention, auditing that. So we're wasting that 9.4 billion, or a major part of it, and we're telling these poor folks, which would just take a tiny fraction, to give these poor folks just a few little pennies in raise. And you're telling them, well, forget about you. We're going to try to hopefully be bankrupt first of all, which is a message they're sending it. They're trying to send.
It's a message they're sending to the people.
Yeah.
That's right. Don't expect, or you don't deserve. As a matter of fact, it's more than you don't deserve. But all of our rich friends and everybody else deserve. So they're the ones who are going to get the hog of this money. And this is not something that we're speculating, Joretta and David. It's already started. And these people, they can see, they can read, they can hear. So they're not going to be fooled. That's what's going on. That poor guy, it's really hurtful. Your fellow Guyanese, a poor person who's just asking for a few penny raise to buy food or to pay rent or just basic things. And you're telling them, well, here, you better not look out for anything. With all of the billions that we're bragging, that we're making. And on top of that, the oil prices right now is even,
it's sky high. Yeah.
And you're telling this person that you cannot afford it. I mean, you can't describe it.
Yeah, I think one of the things.
Sorry,
Yes, Dave, go ahead.
Folks, Exxon has said that they spent, just as Vince is saying, they have spent $9.5 billion in getting up to Liza 1 and Liza 2. Liza 1 and Liza 2, which is the oil producing platforms out there. What we're required to do is audit them numbers. Just like if a man says to you, this is your bill, this is your light bill. You have to go through it now. We send your auditors go through, make sure that they haven't double charged you, double dip charged you for things that you shouldn't have. $9.5 billion. And they said, and that was up to 2017. We have not even started auditing that. 1% of that 9.5, if 1% of that 9.5 billion, if we can get back, that clear off all of NIS debts, and be able to double your old age payment. 1% of the money that NIS said, and everybody, and the average is generally when you audit somebody, you get back. You should know that. People know that when you audit, you get back about 10% or more, right? Depending on how good your
Before,
audit is.
not stopping you, David. As a matter of fact, there was a study done by an expert in this field, an international guy who does this type of thing, and his number was the average you get back is over 30%.
Well,
Wow.
wow.
That no,
So if you have an
full of-
opportunity to get back
absolutely.
30%,
Yep.
why
Yep.
wouldn't you start the audit and do the audit? Give 1%, 1% of that 30% that you're getting back to NIS. Do it all their problems. Raise the old age contribution when you get there. Raise the amount of money for maternity leave. Raise the amount of money for your surgery. Raise the amount of money for your eyeglasses. Raise the amount of money for survivors and widows and funerals and those things like that. You have it in front of you. They have refused to do that. And then they come back and tell you who this. 1% we're asking. Vince is putting that you can get back up to 30%. So why and this costs Guyana no money. We don't have to raise any taxes. We don't have to do anything. All we have to do is pay a legitimate auditing company, international or local or whatever it is, to go out, go through these guys' books, and you can get back all this money. All these conversations we're having here would be mute, would be redundant.
Yep. And I so happen that I'm connected to some of the groups in Guyana, and some of the this disadvantaged people, like the same person who raised the question there. And all they keep telling me, and I'm sure that you folks hear it all the time, especially as politicians, as you go back to your communities, we're everybody, the world saying that we're getting rich. Our economy is the fastest growing in the world, but we're not seeing anything. As a matter of fact, we're getting the opposite. Food prices are up. We're getting blackouts. Everything is up. So you can see why, David. And now this guy is asking for a little increase in his little pension or NIS, and we're telling him, well, you can get it. Don't expect any raise, but all the other friends and families of the powers, that's being
are getting rich.
So you can see why people are asking and why people are getting frustrated and despondent, because they're not feeling the money, but others are. They're seeing it. We're talking about the world is recognizing it, but they this is tremendous growth. Where is the growth? Here's the other challenge, David and Juretto. Yeah, because I know that they like to take credit for stuff. Ms. Valda Lawrence, now an MP, has come out and said here, when we get back in office, they will put aside 1%, like you said, 1% of that, the money that comes in for NIS. I want to challenge them to say no, they're not going to do that, or disagree with that proposition by Ms. Lawrence, who's now an MP. But I guarantee they're going to come up with some gimmick to take credit for something, but come out and say, hey, do you agree or do you disagree that that's not a good idea? We challenge them right now. Come out and say, do you agree that 1%, like you said, David, even 1% of what's owed, but what she was saying is 1% of the things
earned
of what are, put it in there. Do you disagree or agree? Tell the people whether you disagree or agree with that proposal.
A very, very interesting discussion thus far. One of the things I want to point out, just about a little bit of what you were saying there, Vince, about the fact that you have all this GDP growth, but yet persons are not seeing it on the ground. And I just want to point out to folks that we need to be very conscious of the fact that we need to look at our growth, especially our GDP growth, and separate it from oil from the non-oil sectors, because that is how we will truly see how the country has been progressing without oil being added to that. And you will further see the actual gap between the rich and the poor and how it has been widening from 2020 to now, and it continues to widen We had a 7% across the board that was paid to public servants. It did not help the situation. It actually worsened the situation because, again, the gap between the rich and the poor only got wider. So what you're seeing is a little group of persons at the top there. There's a little gang of friends at the top there actually soaking in all the benefits, and the ordinary Guyanese continue to suffer more and more every day. Cost of living is still on the increase. When it comes to youth unemployment and all of those things, the numbers are seriously high, and all of those things we have to take into account when we are reading headlines that says that Barjagdi was saying that there are so many jobs out there, and they might have to be looking for persons from elsewhere to fill these jobs, and all of this nonsense, when ordinary Guyanese are there, young people are seeking employment and are left wanting at the end of the day. So these are the
Mhm.
facts that they are left to actually confront. And to date, no one has been able to actually give any real clarity to the challenges. And I want to point to the fact that these outreaches that the PPP administration have been doing, I do believe that they saw it going in a different direction, if I must say. But they went out there probably for photo ops and all of that. But what they're confronted with is the real issues that are affecting persons, and they have not been able to solve not a single one of those issues. And what we're seeing is that they are now responding to those questions in some very condescending manner to the residents, and the residents are not saying that we're going to sit down and accept this. They're saying that we understand these issues, we have been following these issues, and you need to come with more than just some promises, because they have heard promises before. You can't go to Barbies in which you said, the Skeleton Sugar Factory is going to solve all your issues, and then you're going to come back now after that failure and come and say, oh, well, we have something else to solve all your problems again. So we have a whole lot to do. But Mr. Adams, I know you're over there in the diaspora. I know that Guyana, this is a long weekend. We're looking at Labor Day. And then when you're thinking about Labor Day, you're talking about workers' rights. We have so many complaints when it comes to teachers, nurses, the workers on the oil rig complaining about not being treated fairly and all of those things. What are your thoughts as we go into Labor Day celebrations? I think you're muted, sir.
This year Labor Day, it's really significant, and I think that it's a year that is very symbolic of where we are, and I think that people ought to pay attention, and because the oil industry is leading the economy of this country, and the way that the workers are being treated by the oil industry is just simply pathetic. It's even lawless, because it's defying many of the laws, and this is not coming from me. Okay, this is coming from the GAU, the general secretary. It so happened that he had an interview with the newspapers, and I read it with lots of interest. And of course, GAU is making an effort now to represent the workers. Here's some of the things that came out. There's unequal pay. And the workers, by the way, they've complained. This year is also with the Ministry of Labor. Unequal pay. I think the workers are getting they said like $110,000 per month. They're working 28 hours straight. You work 28 hours on, and then you work 28 hours off. Okay? So you cannot sit. Listen to this, folks. This here is a country that has become independent. We're no longer a colony. Slavery has been behind us for a long, long time. But here is a country that where our local employees cannot sit at the same table with the foreign employees to eat. And you've got to sit there and wait until they're done and have leftovers. This didn't come from me. It's in, I'm sure many of you have read this. Then no insurance for anybody. And only and even those that have a little bit of insurance, you only get it when you're on board. Like no sick leave benefits. No paid, like when you go off for the 28 days, you do not get paid. So that's this $110,000 that you get per month. You don't get paid when you're off the ship. But here's the most egregious illegal part. Do you know that all workers, in most of the workers, depending on who hired them, etc., they have to purchase their own protective equipment, safety equipment, your PPEs. By law, OSHA says by law that has to be purchased by the employee. So the employee
Yeah,
makes
that's correct.
their little pittance of salaries, 110,000, compared to what the foreign employees are making doing the same job, many times more what our employees. But on top of that, they've got to purchase their own personal protective equipment, and it's against the law. It's against the OSHA law. Then Mr. Singh again, who's I think
OSHA, I just want to just interject and say that when Ms. Adams speaks about OSHA, he's speaking about occupational safety and health.
that's right. That's right. That's exactly right. The law that it's in every country. There's always this, but it's a very important law. You cannot operate without complying with this law, and it's obvious that they don't. But here's what's going on, apparently, based on what Mr. Singh is saying. This is the General Secretary again of GAU that has been expressing his frustration. Well, the trick is Exxon, of course, what they're doing, they've got these subcontractors, and then these hiring agencies that are hiring for these subcontractors. So there are all kinds of rules all over the place, and Exxon, of course, is washing their hands. They're not worried about that. Of course, what they're doing also, as a matter of fact, one of the complaints even expressed by Mr. Singh was that the employees were even basically threatened. Those that went to the Ministry of Labor were said that what do you call them?
Violated the
Exxon and them
contract.
were upset that they went to the Ministry of Labor, so they were trying to violate their rights and they were intimidating them, so that to divide the workforce so that they wouldn't get unions and those type of things. So here is what I have to advise Mr. Singh, because apparently Mr. Singh, he believes it's a challenge because of these different entities and they're not consistent. Well, let me advise Mr. Singh, that's not a challenge. The government, as long as the government says this is what they want, this is what they have to have. I did it at EPA. This whole thing about even Mr. Jaglio going around, well, he introduced what is called as cradle to grave, meaning management of waste from the time Exxon produced the waste to the time it's buried, going through all the treatment cycle. I was the one who introduced cradle to grave to Guyana and the EPA to start with. However, you know what Exxon was doing before that? Exxon was generating the waste and hand it off to their contractors and say, you know what, it's over. And I said, absolutely not. You're responsible for everything, all of your contractors downstream that handles that waste in terms of the treatment, etc., before it goes to final disposition. You're responsible for it. So that's where this whole cradle to grave concept comes in. They're responsible. They're supposed to be overseeing their subcontract. This is the same principle here. You cannot wash your hands, just say, hey, I need some employees, and then whoever wants some fly-by-night company goes and hire employees. They come in, and you've got 1,001 different food. The government has got to step in and say absolutely not. Exxon or CDA, whoever is responsible from the get-go, the big company, when you hire a subcontractor, that's part of the contract. You're gonna have to make sure that these employees are covered with proper wages, with PPEs, which is a safety issue. And the thing is, they've got the gall to brag all the time, which is what I've been questioning about. They've got a record, this stellar record of safety. How could you have a stellar record of safety? You're not even providing safety equipment that you're supposed to provide. You cannot do that in any other country. You cannot. So this here is really significant. Now, that the other question is, apparently these complaints have been filed with the Ministry of Labor. The government needs to answer right now. This is not a difficult question. It's within the law. What actions have they taken? And it doesn't mean that they've got to do a study or an investigation. It's blatant. It's there. The complaints have been filed. So it's sitting there. Somehow nobody is doing anything. Now, Hamilton Greed, we all know Hammy, he's one of the icons of Guyana politics and former minister, etc. He had a great and powerful letter to the editor today, and I thought, I need to read some extra stuff from it. Hammy said, "Be reminded of the well-known poem by prominent Lutheran pastor Martin Umello, referring to his miraculous escape from German atrocities, which he observed as follows," and this is in quotes: "In Germany, they came for us for the communists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a communist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. Then they came for a trade unionist, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Catholics, and I didn't speak up because I was a Protestant. Then they came for me. And by that time, no one was left to speak up. This May Day, all workers must take wise counsel from the above experience." Is that where we are today? Where they have finally come for us, the sugar workers, and for us, the right work? No, this is not, Hamid didn't say that. This is what I'm saying. Is this where we are today, where they're now coming for our sugar workers? Because you see what's happening with sugar now. They promise they're going to give back all the jobs. That's not happening. The rice workers, they haul them in trucks and send them, put them, when they were protesting.
Protesting, yeah.
So is that what's happening now? Because these are the communities that are the bastion of the PPP base. They're the ones who put them in there. So are they coming now for their own? And here's the last part that he said that I need to read. "This May Day ought to be a rallying point for workers in the field, office, factory, and security forces, where with one voice a clarion call must be made for better wages and conditions in circumstances where, for the first time since independence, there is an abundance of money to make every worker in the public sector comfortable. I hope President Ali, in his May Day address, will announce a minimum 50% increase for all workers in the public sector and a similar increase of pensions."
Very good.
Read, I think all Guyanese. I mean, this was one of the more powerful statements letters that I've read in today's letter to the editor from former Minister Hamilton Green. Very powerful. He's saying exactly the same thing that we're talking about here, and he's referring. This here's talking about the same guy who asked Mr. Jaguar the question, and Mr. Jaguar saying, something, we ain't got no money for you. But as Mr. Green is saying here, we did more than any time before or after independence. We've got more money than I was about to say we can handle, but they can handle it, but it's going in a different direction.
Not in a transparent way, not for the
That's
benefit
right.
of the
So
people.
this here is very, very powerful, and I thought I had to bring it to the attention for those who had noticed it. And I think it's a very, very powerful message for all.
Most definitely, I think as Vince was reading that, what came to my mind is something that our colleague Sherry Duncan often says, that when you settle for less, temporary becomes permanent, and that is a situation that we cannot allow to happen. Some things may, like you are rightly reading there, Vince, some things may not be affecting each of us individually at this point in time. A lot of times that things happen, you say, "Oh, well, how does this bother me?" You can, if you're a teacher, you say, "Oh, well, the Fisher folks are complaining. How does that
Yep.
bother me?" But we have to remember that everything is so integrated, that once it bothers one person, that actually will affect other persons as well. And Guyanese, every single Guyanese, we have relatives in every single region. So
Or it may come directly to you next.
friends are there, and all of those people. So we need to lend our voices in support of whatever they're saying. We need to assist to help their voices to be amplified at every level also, because once something affect one Guyanese, it should be affecting all Guyanese, and that is the
That's
interest
correct.
we need to take into it. And I think that Labor Day message coming from Mr. Hamilton is absolutely on point, and it's something that I'll definitely be circulating myself. Mr. Patterson, and I know that you have been speaking up a lot when it comes to the workers' rights, especially on the oil rig there. I have to say that it is unacceptable for us to believe that could be business as normal in which Guyanese are being left to eat after folks has eaten, and Guyanese are left basically with the scraps. That's not what we're here for, you know. We have
But
worked hard as a people. We have gone through the struggles as a people. Know that the little resource has been presented to us. It is unacceptable that Guyanese are being treated in that manner.
yeah, Jurita is absolutely correct. You know what I mean? But it's all a product. If you have a government who are just they've given Exxon, they've given these oil operators, these foreigners, these companies who we're pleased to be here. We're
Yep.
pleased to be partners with them,
Yep.
but they must respect one our culture. We came from slavery. We came from indentured labors. We understand what it is to be treated as second class and third class citizens. So I would have thought one of the last things that the government would allow to happen in this modern times is somebody to come back to treat you like they used to do it with people saying master days that gone by. But that is the reason they do this is because they're comfortable with these things. Because the guys give them the lovely trips and lovely money and give them accolades, and then when they go abroad, they sit down and they say it, and then they have the wine and dine them, and their friends and their finances are making a lot of money. So they are willing to overlook all the historical wrongs that happened to us, all the historical wrongs that we battled as a people unitedly, you know what I mean? Indentured laborers, freed labor, free slaves, and everyone battled unitedly to overcome, but they're willing to go all the way back. And then on jobs, though, they came in and they claimed they will be making 50,000 jobs.
Yeah,
Absolutely nothing. They just throw out numbers, you know. But
yeah,
both of us know how, and everyone in Ghana knows how these numbers drop. Oh, and more, we 500 people going to be working, that's going to be employed. They sold out the packaging plant, which was one of the hallmarks they were going to do to bring back sugar. Folks, I hope you in Barbados know that the Enmore packaging plant that was supposed to do 12,000 packets a day or an hour, or those things like that, built by the PPP with the European money, they sold it. They leased it out. And so people are asking what happened. They said, oh, well, they're going to retrain these persons and the 500 people are going to be employed. Hogwash.
yeah.
The level of employment in the oil and gas industry is minuscule. The only major growth we have is in the construction industry. They're claiming, and I said this the last time, they're claiming that the contractor claiming they got workers. Yet Jagdeo comes to every region. He's gonna 800 people are complaining they don't have jobs, and he's doing part-time jobs, 8,000 part-time jobs. How does that work? I mean, I don't know what he's gonna do, but they have no plan. They have nobody stopped. He never ever stopped to tell them where are you gonna get these jobs. They have not created, and I can say this, that they have not created 4,000 jobs since they came back. They fired about 2,000 persons, so they're already in a deficit, but they haven't created 4,000 new jobs since they got back to office with the great amount of oil wealth that we have. More money than we ever,
Biggest market
ever,
ever.
biggest ever, right? We haven't done that. They haven't retrained the sugar worker. So therefore, you
Yep.
know, you have these our sugar workers, they're sitting down every single day, growing old, picking bricks, they set out again to, and they're waiting because, and that's the biggest issue. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, sugar is not coming back. Start demanding something else. Start demanding a bit of bland. You know what I mean? Start demanding if they said they're going to retrain you, let them do it now. Don't wait until the PPP actually be honest with you to tell you that they can't bring it back. They're going to drag it out. They said Skellum was coming back, they threw it off. They said they're going to fix back and more, they sold it off. They said the first place that they're going to open up is Rose Hall in 2022 or 23. That's not going to happen.
It was a lie. You have to call it what it is.
Has
It was a
closed
lie.
down since for the last 4 months and the last 2 months, right? So you can't even operate the ones that functioning. So, but they keep fooling the people, right? And with time we start demanding better. If you're not going to do, if you cannot do it, say so and tell us what's the alternative. Because we can't keep doing this all the while, Teresa.
I
Yep.
think I think one thing that I would say a little differently is that they keep attempting to fool people, but as we clearly saw with the line of questioning from the individual at that outreach, the people are not being fooled. Persons are very informed and they know what is going on. And I think at this point in time, everyone there in Barbados should have realized by now that they blatantly lied when they went there and they took to the podiums and said that they were going to be reopening sugar and all of that when they knew from day one that they were not going to do that. But the atrocities that has been added on since they took office in 2020, I think that some of the things the as we are approaching Labor Day, some of the things that, especially when it comes to blatant violation of workers' rights altogether, those are things that there is no line drawn down the middle. This is no us against them and all of that. When workers' rights are being violated, as a country, as a people, we need to rally together against those atrocities. And this is the beginning of lending our voices to the issue. But we need to do whatever it takes to make sure that those workers are respected and they are treated with some bit of equality and equity altogether as they work in those, especially in the oil and gas industry right now. So, guys, I know that.
But Jared, let me quickly say,
Yes.
is this the same party that was founded by, well, one of the two founding members, Dr. Cherry Jagan, whose entire principle in life was based on, guess who? Those same people. Where has this party gone?
Yeah.
You know,
Let,
he's
let
probably
me
rolling in his grave when he sees the way that workers are being treated. He built his entire political career representing workers and trade unions and those type of things.
I
So
think they
where has
want
this
to get
party
rid of his
gone?
legacy altogether based on the way in
Absolutely.
which they do things. It seems like they want to just get rid and forget about his legacy and the things that he fought for altogether.
Yeah.
Rita and Vince, I want to tell you why it is so difficult. Early on in this year, I mean, last week everybody would have seen Exxon sign their contract to build to use a new shore base in Vreden Hoop. The investors were going to buy. They're going to build a new. And they haven't started as yet. They're going to
Yep.
build a new shore base, 350 million US dollars. On behalf of the opposition, I brought a motion to the parliament, and I want people in Barbados to notice these are the same people that tell you that. And the motion says that the next shore base, because it has to be one of the reasons the next shore base should be built in Barbados. And I went to the parliament and sought to get the parliament's approval that if Exxon will have to go wherever the persons are building. I said, let this Parliament of Guyana instruct all private investors, same set of group of guys who are going to build that one down there, let them build it in Berbice. I went to Parliament. That was in January of this year. And we had, and do you know who voted against that? Same Jagdeo, Ashley Singh, and all of these people that come and tell you how the
Hmm.
coalition hates you. We brought that motion and the understanding. Listen to me. We could bring it in Region 6. Lots more help will come in Region 6 and Region 5. We diversify the economy because we will need hundreds of things. But the people now that should be benefit next, we said must be Region 5 and Region 6. The PPP,
Yeah.
PPP, you're going to vote it against that thing. But they will come on TV and they'll come around to say to you that they love you and that the coalition doesn't like you, the opposition doesn't like you. We brought the motion to instruct all investors. Next one you build, that 350 million US dollars they're going to spend in Breeden Hoop and Wales, on top of the 900 billion dollars they're going to spend on the gas assurance. Instead of doing both, instruct them to build it in Region 6 on the Berbice River. And they voted against that.
Yeah.
They said what they said it's private sector, and the private sector could go where you are. But you can't love a people and then one time tell them you love them, next day you beat them up and deprive them of any opportunity.
Yeah.
That's the truth. So these people, they're mischievous and they're very devious, and they don't really have you, Region 6, Region 5, and wherever. They don't have you your best to look after. They don't have you. The hearts are not in it. They just want to use you, and then come and ask you to vote for them, and then they discard you.
Right.
True.
That is truth. And believe it or not, guys, that's our time. We have been on for an entire hour already.
Oh, that's very good.
When we get onto the program, there's so many things to discuss, but the content or the context of the discussion it's so in depth that sometimes we don't get to some of the things. But I'm just going to mention a little briefly before we sign off tonight's program that we have been monitoring rather the constant blackouts. I know Mr. Patterson is here.
I would love to have some time on speaker now. Maybe next time we come back.
But most definitely, Mr. Patterson have to be given the opportunity to speak at our next program, or even before. I think if this is a matter that you need to speak on, the fact that every day that we've been seeing a new trend happening is like almost a new normal. As when you wake up in the morning, you better press your clothes before you go to bed, because you don't know what is going to be going on with electricity. And this is not just in Georgetown, this is throughout the country. These complaints have been coming in, and also I know that there with the opening of the Eccles to Mandela Road, we have been seeing a lot circulating online with the fact that the traffic is already being backed up there, so that the problem has been transferred from one area to the next important situation. So a whole lot to discuss, guys, but we continue to say, and there you have that particular photo that is on the Eccles to Mandela Road, the road that was supposed to be there to take off the traffic, to ease the traffic congestion that person would have been used to on the East Bank. But there you see that it has not been as planned, to say the least.
I didn't see any lights on the lamppost. What's going on?
Blackout, blackout. Come on, man.
So there's constant blackouts and so many things. And guys, we don't have to sit and make it up. But as we continue to say, we're going to continue to bring you the fact. We're going to continue to dismantle the misinformation as it comes along, and we'll continue to fight on the behalf of all Guyanese, regardless of where you live, regardless of who you are. Once you have a concern, it is our duty to come out and speak out on your behalf. So, guys, I thank you so much for being a part of the program. And
my pleasure.
We will
Pleasure here. But before we leave again, we need to challenge folks who are listening here. You need to ask your politicians when they come out there if they agree or disagree with the opposition proposal to use 1% of the take from the to pay into the INS. Into the NIS. You need to challenge them. Ask them the question, yes or no. Let them answer that question.
And why they refuse to build the shore bases in Berbice?
That's it. And why they refuse to build a shore base in Berbice instead of West Demerara.
Yes, exactly. So many questions, more questions than answers. But guys, we thank you so much for being with us once again, and we will see you next Saturday at 8 p.m. for another edition of Alliance on the Move, coming to you from the Alliance for Change. Have a good night.
Good night. Thank you very much. Have a good weekend. Be safe.
Yep.